Sam, I call. I got the nuts.
Nice hand, you got me. All right, I'll sign this for you.
Yes.
To Ben, good luck. All right, here you go.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Shuffle the deck and deal the scene. Two brothers diving where the stakes get mean. Sam's got hair like a wild cascade. Ben's a healer, twin by trade. They talk the chips, they talk the screen. Every poker flicking in between. The two fish at the table, oh, they're keeping it real. Breaking down the hand, spinning that wheel. Ben and Sam with the cards in their hands, flipping the flop, making us fans.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Legend One of Poker Stars.
I'm either host East Coast Sam on Poker Stars. Today we are reviewing Barry Greenstein's Ace on the River, one of the classic poker books. I think pretty much the biggest classic book that we haven't covered yet, as well as the big game on tour has come back finally, and we are going to finally see the third round with the third loose cannon, as well as Phil Hellmuth, Antonio Esfandiari, and Rob Gronkowski, of all people they decided to bring in here.
And then after that, we'll discuss a few various poker headlines and updates in the poker world before signing off. And so, yes, so Ace on the River, this was a book Sam was kind enough to locate for us on, I believe, Amazon Books, right?
Yep.
For a relatively reasonable price. This book came out just around the poker boom in the mid 2000s. I want to say like '04, maybe '05.
2005.
2005 here. And it's a book that we are familiar with mostly because it was often spotlighted in the main event coverage when the coverage would occasionally shift towards Barry Greenstein, with the whole deal being that if and when he busts, he would sign a copy of his book to the player that knocked him out, which is a cool little thing. Again, similar to Greg Raymer with his fossils, just a little kind of thing, and a little extra, bounty of sorts for the tournaments. And this book here, I've lost count of how many poker books we've reviewed so far, Sam, but I want to say maybe 10-ish, maybe 9 or 10 at this point. And so I honestly didn't know what to expect of this book, but I was very surprised and pleased with my experience of this book. How about you?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect either. I mean, I knew of this book primarily because Barry Greenstein would sign and give to people, though he stopped doing that, I think, in like 2010 or so. I remember seeing some video where he explained that the book is, as you can kind of tell, it's bigger than my head. I mean, look at how big this is. And it's 316 pages. And so, yeah, I kind of just figured it'd be your standard poker strategy book, kind of like Harrington's book, Harrington on Hold'em, something that's just more sort of strategy focused. I was actually surprised that it's more of like a philosophical book about, the philosophies and various things about the poker lifestyle, including a chapter on having sex when you're at the poker table or when you're playing a poker tournament,
At the
rather.
table, yeah. But
Yeah, not at the table. So yeah, I mean, it was just an interesting, very interesting. It's a unique book for me.
yeah, honestly, for me, it kind of feels like if you took the best parts of a lot of the past books we read and put it into one book and made it even better, you kind of get this sort of anthology experience. Like, it's kind of funny how we discuss the quote unquote poker literary universe, how a lot of those books from the WPT series of books kind of tied in together and reference each other. This one doesn't reference those books or anything, but it felt like, bit by bit, if you break the book into maybe like its main three thirds, you really kind of got a flavor of Harrington's Hold'em, a flavor of maybe the biology, like not biology, the biographical sections of poker books that a lot of players will have in the first few chapters, and then the sections on like um, aspects of poker besides poker strategy, like management of your bankroll, having the energy level, scheduling your life, money management. all those things. Again, you get a splash of all those items, and I really thought that Greenstein's prose in these books was really solid. And I actually found myself not feeling cheated from reading this book, even though the true poker stuff really doesn't begin until really over halfway into the book. And it's really not, there's not really a ton of like poker strategy or how to play or stuff like that. But I still was so engaged with the other section of the book that I wasn't let down at all.
Yeah, and another thing too is just how many photographs are in this book. I mean, just like, just scrolling right here. I mean, just how many photos there are of all sorts of different things, interiors of casinos, exteriors here, just sort of players at the table. I mean, I think at one point it was mentioned that there's 200 photographs in here. So it's again, it's a very readable book. A lot of chapters are only 2 pages long in
Yeah.
terms of text. And then there's like sort of a big cover chapter spread rather of showing some glossy photograph with some text with all sorts of just strange quotes. Like right here, here's Sigmund Freud being quoted. I think a couple movies were quoted at different points, novelists of different kinds. The Godfather 2 is quoted right here. So it's, yeah, I mean, Barry Greenstein, for what I can remember, always came off as kind of almost a dour guy. Like he wasn't super smiley or energetic or anything. He didn't really get out of line at the table. So to see this sort of side of him that's a bit more fun, a bit more casual was really interesting.
Yeah, and even just that first, section of the book where it just talks about how he got into poker, the ups and downs of his life with money and being cheated or trying to avoid bad spots and finding other players and support systems. I just thought that was really good stuff. And comparing that section to the comparable sections of other books that we've read, I thought this was far and away the best iteration of that. I think Jerry Yang's life story takes the cake still, but that's a bit unfair to compare because that's a more of a engaging life story rather than just a poker player's, poker origin, narrative. But I really dug that. And while yes, this book does have a lot of what we kind of referred to in the WPT books as like page filler or whatnot, I didn't feel cheated because the book itself is just kind of feels kind of solid and like a little bit higher quality, and the pages are bigger and the photos are in color rather than in black and white, and there was a lot of effort I felt put into the framework of the book, including not just the actual writing of it. And I kind of felt that even though there were chapters, like you said, that maybe were only 1 or 2 or 3 pages in there, maybe it was designed that way in case he was going to go back and make it like a version 2, and he would expand upon maybe those sections, maybe not. But also, I like that he at least thought that it was important to demarcate these sections because a lot goes into being a professional poker player. Greenstein was, again, one of the best of the best in that period of time when this book came out. And so I appreciate him not just sort of feeling like certain sessions weren't worth including by in fact including those micro chapters.
And it also feels very honest. Like right at the start of the book here, there's this dedication that I want to read actually, because I actually said out loud, wow, when I was reading this. This book is dedicated to the children of gamblers. They were rarely promised anything because the promise might have been too hard to keep. They may have wanted to play a game with their parent rather than watch a sporting event on which their parent had placed a bet. They were told everything was done so that they could have toys and clothes and a nice place to live, but all they wanted was a little more of their parents' time. I apologize to my children, Michael Sabach, Joseph Seabach, Chris Seabach, Christina Chan, Nathaniel Greenstein, and Melissa Greenstein, for when I have failed as a parent. I mean, what a sucker punch to start the book with. I mean, it's a really brave admission from his part. And he really doesn't shy away from how tough it is being a poker player, that you're constantly being scammed. You're constantly having to manipulate other people. You're engaging in all these unethical practices at the poker table. And then you have to step away from it all, go home and be a parent and not let those unethical practices bleed into your life. I mean, it's a really honest portrayal of poker that, yes, this was 20 years ago that he wrote this book. I still feel it applies today, not just in poker, but in a lot of endeavors. It's very honest.
Yeah, and also just going through some of the other sections he includes. So he has the early life bio section, my poker career section. He has the Poker Society dictionary, and then later there's a glossary later too. But there's I think I like that he had both of those in there because they're a bit different. One is more about poker terminology towards the end of the book, like we've seen in the WPT books, and this one. And early in the book is more about, what a director is, what a dealer is, all those things. So that way, again, we're talking about this is for maybe it's a few of the terms maybe aren't applicable nowadays, or maybe people would mostly know them. But I still think it was kind of cool to include that. I did enjoy it. At one point, he mentions a variety of stud called Black Maria stud, which is kind of funny where the highest spade takes half the pot, which is just kind of a funny little, like almost like house rule thing to throw in a set. It's kind of a funny thing. I wouldn't mind trying it out sometime. Unfortunately, I don't think it'd be doable on Poker Stars, but maybe just like, live 1v1 would be kind of fun to try that out once.
Yeah, I would like to try that out too. I mean, again, most I think feel like the principles of the book hold up from 2005 onward. And yeah, there is a section toward the back where it's more about advanced play and mathematics. And then there is a pretty long, the longest chapter in the whole book is him going through hands, kind of like Harrington's book and explaining what the strategy was behind his actions and also what he thinks you should do and what he actually did, which sometimes are not the same thing. So that was also interesting to read.
Yeah, and again, it is pretty similar to Harrington on Hold'em in that section. It's handled a touch differently, which at least makes it don't feel so homogenous. Although I did take a bit issue with the fact that a lot of the hands covered are stud hands, and the way their hands are shown on the page, and you got to flip back. I thought that was maybe a little bit too difficult of a to get the whole mental image in my head of that hand together, but not a huge deal. But I think that's why I think games like Hold'em lend themselves better to if you're not going to have everything on one set of 2 pages and you have to flip back and forth. That's the only issue I would have with that part.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And maybe I would have liked a little bit more detail in some of the shorter chapters. Just in case you're wondering, the chapter on sex is basically just like players are horny, and if you get horny, you should have sex like outside of the table. It's kind of a weird chapter to throw into the book, honestly. I don't know why it was in there. I would have liked to not, that chapter cut out, and then maybe some more details about just life as a gambler, life as a grinder. What should you do when you're traveling to other cities? How do you avoid being scammed? How do what is the day of a poker player like? When do you decide to call it quits? When do you decide to take a break and get lunch? What should you do during lunch? Maybe a little bit more practical details like that would have been nice, but that's kind of me sort of stretching there. I feel like this is a solid book.
And also because most of the poker stuff is toward the back and it's a good chunk of the book, but it's not the whole book. It does kind of help give this book a bit more of a timeless quality that it's not as outdated as a lot of other books might be, like Kill Phil would be, or some other strategic focus books like that. And I also part of the tournament hand question and answer section is I was keeping track of sort of my performance on answering the questions right. I think I got most of them right, and even the ones I got wrong, it was more when it was a bit more subjective as far as like how much to bet. Like I was off. I didn't get the exact number right, but I was not like under bet versus over bet. Like it was more like I said half pot and he bet 2/3 pot. Like that's close enough. I feel like that's not a huge like incorrect answer there. It'd be partial credit in a math test.
Yeah, I was trying to keep track, kind of. I mean, most of the time it's just like, oh, I have Jack 8 suit. I'm just going to fold pre-flop.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I actually misread that question. I thought it was suited, so I was like a little confused why he was why he was not more happy with his hand being straight flush draw, but it was because it was offsuit. But that's just because it was clubs and spades, so I don't think it was too bad of an error there. So again, some of the other sections would be like how to behave at the table, traits of a good player, poker play lessons, tournament advice, and again, just stuff that some might accuse of being kind of broad and generic, but I thought that there was enough of his voice in there to make it feel like it wasn't too cliche or similar to past books. I thought all around I was never bored reading this book. I was excited to see what would be the next section, and even though the pictures didn't really add much to me, at least he was trying to make things a bit more fancy. And I think that it was kind of cool to see players 20 plus years ago with a table, and even seeing some of the old chips at the table. It was all fine.
Yeah, I mean, the back of the book says that it's designed to improve the play of everyone from beginners to seasoned professionals. I mean, I think this is more suited for beginners and then maybe people who are sort of playing online and want to transition to a live game. I'm not sure if, seasoned GTO wizards would necessarily need to read this, unless you really like Barry Greenstein, you want like a look at poker historically. But I think beginners could definitely still enjoy this book and get some advice from it. Again, not super applicable to today's scene, but something there about the philosophy and lifestyle of being a poker player.
Yeah, and I was trying to think how would I rank this overall in all the books we've read, and I gotta say maybe it's a bit of recency bias, but I might put this as my favorite. I just really I flipped I was never looking at the page count saying, oh my God, how much more do I got to read? I read this in probably like 30 to 50 page chunks, maybe on a daily basis, maybe two times in a day. Sometimes I'd be 30 and 30. Even though Harrington on Hold'em definitely goes into more strategy and more permutations, it did. I mean, it was maybe a bit more repetitive by the end, once you're getting through all those questions, even though they're all different situations compared to this book. And I liked how it was a more full-rounded poker experience compared, and it also I thought just read and came across better than say Eric Lindgren or Esfandiari's books and the ones that. So it might be my favorite. I don't know. It's definitely either one or two for me.
It's toward the top for me. I'd have to look through all the books again. I mean, I did reread Antonio Esfandiari's or just skimmed through it, the book that we have of his. And you can kind of tell, I think he's kind of held back by the World Poker Tour label and format that he's a bit more generic with his information than I think that Barry Greenstein is here. So it's toward the top of the pile. I mean, again, I really liked Jerry Yang's book just because his memoir and his life story was really interesting. Not so much his cover of Poker in 2007 main event, but his life story was really fascinating. Yeah, the writing here I really thought was good too. It was a very quick read for me. Again, the short chapters helped, but I mean, yeah, I read it 50, 60 page sessions like you did, and it was a good read. And I think you could definitely sit down and read this in one sitting on an airplane or a train or something and enjoy it.
I would say maybe the only negative I'd have for the whole book, the biggest negative would just be again kind of like the WPT book or the Super System where you have that lengthy section in the back that has like the odds of how many outs you have of every situation or like the odds of making a hand here. Like I just think that that's just all kind of not useful and you're not going to really flip through that. I mean, once you know the math of like how many outs gives you what percentage of winning the hand, you don't really need to know the rest there. If you can calculate how many hearts are left in the deck for your flush draw. You don't need to know like if you're up against two pair, how many times out of 100 are you going to make that hand, and then and it just seemed like it was not needed.
I mean, I did find it kind of interesting. Like, here's this sort of chart for hands after the flop and the different values. I did find it kind of interesting how there were hands that had fewer outs that you had a higher percentage of winning than hands that had more outs. That was kind of interesting to see laid out, depending on how the flop works. I mean, it's not like a deal breaker for me or
Right.
anything
No,
like
it's
that.
toward the end. It's not like there's not like a paragraph or like text to go along with it explaining when this might happen. It's just kind of there like in a math textbook when you have like random stuff available at the very back of the book. It's again not a big deal, but I thought maybe it didn't need to be there.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But overall, again, thumbs up for me. And while we're on the topic of sort of being positive about poker content or poker media here, I got to take now. I guess move us here to the Big Game on Tour, Season 2, Part 3. Just getting the nomenclature here right. This
Right.
dropped in March of this year, so about 2 months ago. 5 episodes as per usual. Again, probably for me, my favorite big game on tour table lineup of all time. Not that that means a ton. Maybe because here we have again Phil Hellmuth, my favorite. Phil Hellmuth. Esfandiari, my like secret favorite because he's now when he was in the main poker spotlight, he was always gold, and I wish he was more in the main event coverage, whether playing or in the booth. But that's whatever. He's kind of made a mini thing back here. We have Rob Gronkowski. Now we're Boston boys here. Even though you weren't really like a big Patriots fan, you were at least cognizant of all their success and Gronk being a big part of that. So you know who he is, and he's a top player of all time in many different facets of the NFL, whether best player of all time, tight end, whatever you want to call it, whatever. Then we have Nick Wright, who's kind of been maybe the most popular like sports caster poker player probably for the last couple of years. I mean, he was in the high stakes duel against Hellmuth. He was in
Mhm.
the Heads Up Championship. Here he is here. So that's kind of cool. And again, having a sports commentator, he's on like First Things First and some other shows. And with a NFL player, it's kind of a cool little synergy there. So you have Hellmuth and Esfandiari having some good synergy. And then you have Wright and Gronk, so which means that leads to a lot of fun kind of sports related stories at the table. And then we have our loose cannon Luke Wakeland, who I want to say was probably the least noteworthy of the three loose cannons from the audition episode of season two. I feel like the other two definitely got more of the edit and were more noteworthy, if you ask me. And then we have kind of our wild card player, and when I say wild card player, I mean a player that I have never heard of that is kind of like a newish player, Rania Nasreddine. And I thought that I'm sorry, Rania, excuse me, Rania,
Right.
he played very well, which added to the table's entertainment value. And Luke, even we'll get to how his gameplay worked out, but he kind of ended up being like the best, worst loose cannon of the big game on tour as well. And so, and obviously, I'm kind of covering everything from the very top here, but altogether, I didn't think this table had one dud player. And then someone ends up busting in this table. and the player replacing them is Phil Laak. So it's like we had seven, good players at the table, and so that's kind of like if I was gonna this like my my essay for this season here. I don't know, I'll let you pitch it in a second here, Sam. We had just a pretty good sort of roster here. I mean, just the best by far of this show.
Yeah, I mean, Phil and Esfandiari, I mean, just getting the two of them together in a room, I could just have them sit in a room with iced coffee and just talk to each other and just like the banter between the two of them is just so extraordinary. Nick Wright, yeah, I mean, I now would say like after having seen the big game, I'm a Nick Wright fan. I like his dynamic at the table. I like that he seems like a talkative person. He seems like an engaging person, but he's not mugging for the camera. He's not like Phil and Esfandiari who are like constantly bantering with each other. He just has a good presence. Rania Nasreddine, I never heard of before this. I'm looking at her Hendon Mob now. She has over 2.1 million in tournament earnings. She's made a bunch of final tables at different events. She's made a bunch of WSOP caches. I think she came off very well here, kind of like Nick Wright. She just has a good presence. I like that again. She engages in banter, but she's not mugging for the camera or anything. And as we're going to see as we sort of break these episodes down, she's got some chops. Like I think she's a pretty good player. And then Rob Gronkowski, I mean, I did not know what to expect with him.
Me
I
neither.
didn't know, again, as Ben mentioned, we're both Boston boys. I've, seen Gronkowski on television and all sorts of stuff. He has this sort of, I don't know, frat boy energy to him. You could just kind of imagine with like a backwards hat and a shirt without sleeves, and he's showing off his muscles or something. So I had no idea what to expect with him. It's like, is he going to be what is he going to be like as a poker player? Is he going to be too obnoxious? What sort of vibe is he going to have? And he really clicked really well with just about everybody, especially Phil Hellmuth of all people. Like just imagining just like the crossover between Phil Hellmuth, who I just kind of see in this world of poker, and then Rob Gronkowski in this world of football, that they like actually seem to become friends and are bantering with each other. And Phil Hellmuth's giving him fist bumps, and Esfandiari really likes him too. Like Gronkowski really came off really, really well. And then, yeah, we have our loose cannon, Luke Wakeland, who, yeah, I didn't really remember from the promos that much. Kind of remembered his kind of like had a mullet sort of thing going on with his hair. Um, they sort of have at the beginning of this episode that the judges wanted this sort of like cocky and overconfident guy, and Luke apparently fit that bill. I didn't think he came off as cocky at all. He seemed like, he's definitely being like, oh, I'm going to try to win some money. He's trying to have a little bit of confidence, but nothing too over the top or anything. And again, he comes off fine. We'll get into what exactly happens, but again, seems like a nice guy. So yeah, this was a really, really great lineup. Again, it took a little bit of while for me to really
Yes.
click into it, to get to learn Rania a little bit, to figure out what Gronk was going to do. But eventually, like really by the end of the second episode, I'm like, all right, I'm locked in with this.
Yeah, it seems like the view count for these episodes really didn't quite make a comeback from the dips of the last few batches. So, episode one had 158,000 views, and the rest of the episodes really just kind of hovered between like 100, like 90 to 130K or so. So it really didn't experience any sort of momentum as it went episode to episode. And it's kind of funny because I kind of compare having Gronk on the show to PK, where you have this big sports star that maybe, you know, Gronk is more well known in America, PK is better known in Europe. So I wasn't sure if, if it's kind of like if they're as popular in their native country as the other, or if there's maybe a difference here. I want to say maybe PK is a bigger star because soccer is probably a bigger sport in Europe and more countries. And maybe collectively speaking, I was just that's something that was in my mind here. But then again, alluding to your point of sort of being on guard at first, because this was Gronk's TV poker debut, but it also kind of felt like it was his like poker like debut as well. Like he doesn't even know like how to raise or to call or like he pretty much spends the whole table limping. Like the $200 and maybe just calling a two bet or three bet after that. Not really mixing things up too much. He does a little bit, but I was very concerned that it was just going to be like he's going to like lose like $1,000 every hand and then just sort of blind his way out. But he managed to put a few twists and turns in the game where he kind of deviates maybe from like the poker standard code, which the table permits him to do, of course. But at least it was. But here in episode one, I was concerned we weren't going to get that kind of fun stuff. Luckily we did later on.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so weird seeing Gronk like not even 100 hands into the session, he still didn't know when the action was on him. He still didn't seem to know just like basic strategy behind raising and all that. I know that he's taken a lot of blows to the head, so yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it was fun to watch that.
Yeah, and so the key thing about this table dynamic is that Esfandiari bought in for $100,000. Everybody else bought in for 50K. And Esfandiari, he kind of like, if you ask me, he kind of takes up the Alan Keating role where he's like, bluffing a lot, raising big every hand, playing only two cards, trying to always have the rest of the table out chipped. And he does experience a good amount of success for the most part, but there is a fair amount of up and down with him. So at least that didn't keep things from being too boring. But early on in the episode, like for example, Esfandiari bets for $50,000 in the turn because that puts everybody else automatically all in. So again, kind of like flexing a bit like that. Luke is in there in the early goings. He's winning a small pot here and there, making a bad bluff there. But at the very least, the reason why I wasn't too annoyed at his bad play was that he was trying, and he wasn't just trying to fold his way to, kind of like how the last Luke had kind of played maybe scared poker, only playing premium hands. He was a bit more not afraid to mix things up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he gets involved in a number of hands here. It's just things don't really ever go his way. He's just doesn't pick up any real big pots, isn't able to get through on bluffs. And as you mentioned, yeah, Esfandiari really just kind of gets his table captain hat on. He's pushing people around. He raises a lot of pots. He's definitely targeting Gronk. He pretty much raises every single hand that he's involved in with Gronk. And as I also mentioned, really, sparking with Hellmuth, trying to get a lot of banter going. So Esfandiari, again, is such a great presence at the table. I don't mind him playing the table captain, but unfortunately, it means that Luke just isn't quite able to muscle his way in there and make a presence for himself.
While his poker play doesn't really make a presence, he does make an imprint on me with this ridiculous attempt at like a rap at the table. Like it was called like MILFs Need Love too, but he tries to rap and it just sounds like it's like legit the worst rap. We've joked about past poker raps over the years. This is probably bottom tier by far, if you ask me, out of all of them. Like I'll take Prolonged Freedom any day over that.
Yeah, it was bleeped too. A lot of it was bleeped, so you don't even
Yeah.
really hear it. It's very strange.
Yeah, and then there was one laugh I had where Rania mentions she was in a pudding eating contest, I guess, and then we get the joke. Well, it starts looking like puke, which I guess is kind of a funny little food joke, I guess. I mean, it was a little amateur. I mean, immature, but I thought it was kind of funny. It took me off guard.
Yeah, like Nadia kept asking everybody, what are your secret skills? What are you doing? And like Esfandiari says he's really good at barbecue. Gronk says he's good at juggling. We get these like little stories that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise, which I really appreciate. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, but probably for me, the funniest part of the whole episode one was Helmuth keeps trying to begin a conversation and then it gets interrupted by something, by either the hand or by somebody else talking. So, and it's just, and the table eventually picks up on the fact that they can't get any conversations across well. So that was kind of funny how that worked out. Overall, I thought the episode was just okay. But and I was actually kind of concerned about the rest of the show. I was worried maybe this would have been the peak of the quality of the 5 episodes, but I turned out to be I'd be wrong about that because then we get to episode two. Phil Hellmuth gets tilted, which covers the next 24 hands. And again, with episodes two onward, we have to have this lengthy 5 minute introduction that recaps episode one. Everyone gets a little bit of sound bit. And again, we have more of those post-mortems that we hate. Luckily, as the table progressed, because I was so enjoying the you know table stuff, whether it was the hands or the table talk, I was able to kind of filter out and block out the annoyances of the interview bits and whatnot. Maybe a bit better than I had been in episodes past, even though they're still there. And maybe it was partially because I was partially coming off of the high of liking the interviews a bit more with the shark cage stuff, maybe. But it's still. I mean, again, if you would given me just the hands version of this table or edited all those interviews out, it would have been pretty cool. But episode two does begin with Nick and Gronk discussing the 2018 Chiefs Patriots game, which again, Nick Wright is a known big Chiefs fan. So to hear them discuss that game that Gronk was a part of was just kind of a cool little moment to watch as a Pats fan like me.
Yeah, I agree with you about the recaps. I eventually wound up skipping them. I just couldn't really take them anymore. 5.5 long minute recaps of, things we've already seen. It's just kind of ridiculous. I will say though that there was really one great line from Phil Hellmuth during the recap in this episode. He says, "I think my number one career highlight is that I'm the greatest of all time." I think that just says everything about Phil Hellmuth in a nutshell. And also, there's just an interesting little clip of Gronk and Hellmuth throwing a football to each other in the hallway. And again, just like Hellmuth being in this poker world, Gronk being in this football world, these two worlds coming together is just really fun to me. But yeah, I mean, this episode again is where things start to kind of click a bit better. The dynamics are settled in. There's conversations about what is a song that you're going to listen to before you die when you're lying in your coffin. And again, like it's just these little things that these little stories and these little anecdotes from people's lives that just that are brought out at the table because there's somebody like Esfandiari there who wants to bring these out, and Rania wants to bring these out. Like I appreciate it. It feels rich. It feels real, and it adds something to the episode itself. And then yeah, you hear these stories about the Chiefs games, and Esfandiari is giving Gronk's tips in the bathroom. Like everybody just seems to be having a great time, and that's really nice.
Yeah, and also I would say that with Esfandiari pushing the action, it does lead to a lot of big confrontations in this episode. For example, Nick Wright is the first one to bust because he ends up shoving one pair into Esfandiari's flush. And again, you got to be careful with Esfandiari because he runs pretty good, as we see in the one drop in 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And so I think there's only two, feltings in this whole. Maybe there's three. I think there's three feltings in this whole run. This was the first one, and then Gronk gets the better of his Esfandiari when he flops quad jacks and wins a big pot. So again, we get some pretty cool, reversal of fortune for Esfandiari because then Nick Wright doubles right back to Esfandiari with a straight against trip eights. So again, that's another key aspect of this game is when you have chips flying around, people busting, doubling back through. Again, I like that sort of thing, and this episode definitely played a bit bigger and better than episode one for that reason.
Yeah, Helmuth has another all-time line for me right after Wright gets felted, and he goes, "As long as the 8-4 suiteds and the Jack deuce suiteds keep hitting flushes, he's gonna win all the money." Like, it's just funny seeing Helmuth get so tilted at Esfandiari. I mean, yeah, Esfandiari runs very well. Don't get me wrong throughout this entire thing, but it's just Helmuth seems genuinely tilted at Esfandiari, and Esfandiari gives as good as he gets. So it's a great dynamic. Oh my God.
Yeah, I wasn't writing down quotes or anything, but again, there's just a lot of great stuff between them. And again, these guys have over 20 years of back and forth history together, so this is just another great chapter of that stuff. And probably again, this episode, this series didn't have a clean 30, 30, 30, 30 hand breakdown of every episode. Some hands would run a little bit shorter than that, but we do end on a pretty funny, epic moment where Gronk actually has his dad play a hand for him. And of course, he gets five deuce off, so it's like, oh, he's just gonna fold. But he plays the hand, makes it straight, and then checks back on the river. So it's just some dumb Gronk moments here, but it was still hilarious. At least because it was his dad playing poorly. I didn't mind the bad play, but also it was against the loose can, so I guess I didn't really care either way who would win the hand. But just some weird wild card moments like that I thought added to the game as well.
When he was coming over to the table, I was saying to myself, I hope to God they have Gronk Sr. in the graphics. And they did. They had him in the graphics with a little photo of him, just like they did all the other players. And I thought that was such a great touch. It's, again, such a great hand. Everybody's just having a good time. They're playing for, $50,000, a lot of money at the table here, but everybody's just playing as though they're playing for $5. It's really wonderful that they do that.
Yeah, but ultimately, with episode two's conclusion, our loose cannon was still, very short and in bad shape as we're about one third of the hands in the bank here. Episode three called Phil Hellmuth Can't Believe This Play, which again, fairly level in the view count, 123,000 views here. Has some, the conclusion of Luke's stay at the table here, where in my notes I put him as either the best worst loose cannon or the worst best loose cannon, and I guess depending on how you want to frame best and worst is why I say that because if we're talking like quality of poker play, he's like one of the worst. But if we're talking like avoiding all the pitfalls that many of those cans fall into, then he's the best. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. I mean, yeah, he was swinging for the fences. I mean, he was playing a lot of hands. He just wasn't making good plays, unfortunately. And yeah, I mean, to have 5 episodes and he's out before the halfway point of episode 3, I mean, that kind of says it all right there. He kind of just felt like an afterthought. Again, he seems like a nice guy, don't get me wrong. And again, you have these big players with all these big presences at the table. It's just kind of a shame to see him bust here, but at least he had a good time. At least he, made some good memories. Hopefully he keeps in touch with these people. But yeah, it's kind of a shame to see him go.
And then the other things that was kind of being established was that Rania was winning with hero calling against Esfandiari very regularly. She was accumulating chips. I would say in like small to medium chunks. Esfandiari would win maybe some of the bigger pots against Nick Wright here and there, but she was winning, 5, 10, 15K at a time and gradually increasing her stack to a big number. Where so by the time Luke busts, we see Phil Laak take his seat, which is pretty awesome because again we have the Laak, Hellmuth, and Esfandiari. Even though I combine Esfandiari and Laak together, just to have all three of them together is just pretty fantastic. And we get for me, and maybe I'm a little hyperbole here, but I think possibly for me the best part of any big game poker episode of all time is when we discuss the falling out of Esfandiari and Locke because it's something real, something that matters to me, something that I really wanted to hear about, and to hear them both discuss it and have Hemsworth kind of chime in there was just really special.
Yeah, I didn't know that Philok was going to be here, so I was so surprised to just see him walk in. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And yeah, we get this very interesting story that Esfandiari went to Locke's house during COVID and then tried to see him. Locke wouldn't see him. And then Locke sent him a text message saying, don't come back to my house if you don't give me a 24-hour warning. So, like, Esfandiari kind of feels dumped by it. But they're kind of hinting that maybe there could be some reconciliation, that they're going to have lunch together soon and all that. And they do seem to banter with each other and say how much they like each other and how they miss each other. So hopefully, maybe the big game brings them back together and we'll get season 3 of I Bet You. But who knows?
I mean, for me, friendship is so important, and especially since we're not talking about life-changing money at the table here, but if we're talking like life-changing friendship rebuilding moments here, this is for me, a pretty important moment in poker history, if you ask me. Even though it's maybe again a little hyperbole here, but I think that was just really, I was really locked in on this section of this episode.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I mean, I thought it's nice to see that they're starting to reconcile a little bit. I mean, I don't quite know whose side I should take here. I mean, I think you can't really just show up to somebody's house without warning. I think it's fair to say like, hey, can you text me before you show up? This is during COVID. So I guess I take Locke's side, but Helmuth kind of takes Esfandiari's side. I don't quite know. And again, who knows if this story is completely accurate, if there's any details missing. But hopefully, again, they do patch things up because again, the two of them are just so funny together. Like they just banter so well, and they seem to have such a long history. So hopefully, everything works out okay.
And then this episode does bring us back to the old bomb pot special, which we hadn't seen up until this point, and we don't actually see 7 bomb pots in this lineup. So I wonder if maybe a few were skipped or that not everybody played their card. But I did like how Phil offered $100 to Nick Wright to stop complaining about being under the gun for the bomb pots. That was just kind of a funny little needle there. And Nick actually wins the bomb pot after Phil literally calls out his hand card for card. So that was pretty funny there. And then we get from Rania near the end of the episode one of the better hero calls I've seen personally, where he calls Nick down with King. Well, she calls him down with King High on the river, which for me was just a boss move too. I mean, she was really playing for me. If you probably hand to hand the most consistent and solid poker of the whole table.
Yeah, absolutely. She was very impressive. She just seemed very locked in. And yeah,
Nice.
everybody again was very impressed by that King High call too. That was very stunning to see.
And then she rivers a straight against Helmuth to get him to rant again. And Hellmuth really didn't take too many, bad beats. He played pretty tight, won a few pots here and there, but nothing, too like top 5 Hellmuth moments of all time. But definitely, we got some good rants at Hellmuth overall in this package.
Yeah, and at the very end of the episode, he sort of explodes, and Gronk is like, "I thought you were a nice guy. Like, what's going on here?" And it's just funny. Like, that is Gronk witnessing for the first time a Phil Hellmuth rant and blow up. So I wonder if he Googled Phil Hellmuth afterward and saw all the videos of him ranting and blowing up. That was funny.
And so by the end of episode 3, Ronnie and Esfandiari are the only 2 players up. Everybody else is down. So it's kind of a funny little, compare and contrast here of how everyone's doing, math wise. Episode 4 gets to a pretty cool headline here. Gronk plays without looking, and there's no bull there. That's actually what happened. So Though it's not the very beginning of the episode though. So at this episode starts, Esfandiari and Nick Wright have a little bounty side bet of $2,500 to bust Hellmuth, which would have been fun if it had happened, but it doesn't. But it might have played maybe a small role in some hands later on potentially. He does. Hellmuth does get some big hands early on, win some pots, particularly against Nick Wright. So that was good for him to kind of finally get some momentum going. And then we have a pretty enjoyable hand here between Gronk and Esfandiari involving a coin flip.
Yeah, I mean, just Gronk in this episode. This is just like Gronk's episode. He just kind of takes control of the show during the second half here, just playing all these hands blind, making blind raises, blind calls. He misreads his hand at one point and still manages to win the hand. And then, yeah, he finally decides to flip a coin in order to decide, and after rather, as Esfandiari does, excuse me. And it's just crazy that they were doing all this stuff that, dark reads, dark raises, flipping coins to the side action, as Esfandiari letting Gronk pick his action, just really funny stuff. It's just great.
Yeah, and Gronk wins four hands in a row in this episode without looking at his cards for most of the hand or for most of an individual hand, which is pretty cool because it's one thing if he's like playing blind, like making bad plays and losing the hand, but when he wins the hand, it kind of almost justifies the whole antics here. And therefore, for me, I might have called this episode my favorite of the entirety of the Big Game on Tour, actually.
Yep, out of the 15 episodes, this is my favorite. I'll probably watch this again. This was a lot of fun to watch.
Maybe even all 25 if you go back to season one.
Yeah,
Nicky Lino and Lily Newhouse. I would say this one here, number one. And
yeah.
although I think my favorite moment would be the Phil Laak Esfandiari reconciliation story from episode prior.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
And then there was one interview bit that I thought was at least decent compared to most of them, which is when Helmuth talks about his top five players of all time. So he lists Ivy, Doyle Brunson, Esfandiari, Negreanu, and himself, of course. And I would think to myself, I mean, those are five names kind of like from the 15, 20 year ago top players scene. But I just don't know the new young guns or new players of the last maybe like 7 to 10 years to be like, am I 100% certain that it's those five? But I don't know about you, Sam. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously ranks himself number one because somebody like him is going to win consistently. A lot of poker players, they play poker like this, but Phil Hellmuth plays poker like this. He's seen people play poker like this. He's played poker like this, but he plays it like this. Uh, yeah, I don't know how it would rank. I mean, this is again no limit hold'em cash game, which I'm not as familiar with as tournaments. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, Ivy. I don't know how Ivy is as a cash game player. Doyle always came off as fairly solid. Esfandiari and Negreanu always came off as fairly solid. I'm not quite sure who are some of the young guns that might beat them. I mean, I'd have to go and look at the Hendon Mob rankings and all that.
Yeah, that's fair. I just know that that's not us. That's all I know. We're not in the
It's
top
not
five.
me.
Not yet. In any case, so again, a very solid episode. I would say I feel kind of bad that doesn't have more views on YouTube. I think it definitely deserves to be up there, not just 92,000, but episode five covers the last 42 hands. So again, I kind
Mhm.
of felt like they were maybe trying to squeeze in as much of Luke as they could early on because he busted kind of early. So they had to backfill the last few episodes here. So this is kind of like the bomb pot episode because we get three bomb pots again, all kind of crammed in at the very end. Gronk does play a couple more hands and is willing to put it all in for better or for worse. And he wins one bomb pot, and then he plays another one and just folds five deuce open folds, which I guess in a bomb pot, fine if you want to do that, whatever. But I never do that ever if I can check. But that's just me. Rania did have a couple of hero calls or not hero calls go against her, but still managed to secure a pretty solid profit. So again, I feel like when you make five correct hero calls, I'm not going to kill you for making two bad folds or bad hero calls at the end.
Yeah, she played very solid. I mean, even with those couple of hands that she misplayed, I'd still say she's a very good player, especially because she said this is the first time she's ever played no limit hold'em cash games ever. So she really acquitted herself very well. And yeah, Gronk again kind of steals the show here. A lot of banter. He calls Esfandiari at one point the Persian Gronk. So hands between the two of them are Gronk versus Gronk. And unfortunately, he hits a straight when Esfandiari winds up rivering a bow, and so he winds up losing his chips unfortunately. But he does stay at the table. He's about to leave, but he reloads for 25K and then manages to win a big pot with aces versus Hellmuth's ace king, which leads to maybe like the funniest banter out of these whole 5 episodes. That Hellmuth is just so proud of himself for folding ace king because he knows Gronk has aces, and meanwhile Esfandiari and everybody else is chiming in about how bad it is for him to fold ace king, even though he was correct. It's just
I mean, it's
just
one of those amazing debates where it's like everyone else thinks that it's the worst fold ever, but it's the correct fold. So how can you say it's the worst fold? It's almost like the abortion issue, or all those like the chicken or the egg. Like nobody thinks they're ever wrong, even though I'm with Helmut here. If you know your opponent has aces, then fold the ace king. I know it's a cash game. I know it's not for a ton of money, but I mean, when you're literally going to be shown the aces, if I mean, you might as well fold the ace king there. And if anybody can fold ace king pre-flop correctly, I know it's Helmut. So all props to him for somehow this is at least the third or fourth time I've seen him. I can recall that he's done it correctly and been right. And everyone's written a new one for it, even though it's always an amazing fold. I mean, I folded big hands pre-flop before too, so it's not unheard of. I mean, I think I once folded queens pre-flop to like a 5 bet, and so they had showed me aces. So I mean, I'm not saying my last question: what's a better fold pre-flop, ace king or queens pre-flop against aces?
better fold. I mean, I guess ooh, that's a tough. I think it kind of depends on the action. I mean, just looking at the action here, like Gronk limped, Esfandiari raised to 1, Hellmuth raised to 2.7, Gronk raised to 5. And as we mentioned, Gronk had been limping this whole time, so it kind of makes sense that he'd have a big hand considering those table dynamics. I don't know. I mean, the queen's hand that you just gave me, it was a 5 bet shove all in, and you folded queens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense as a play to fold queens there. Like, what else is he? What else is he? He's not going to do that with ace 10. No, he's not going to do that. He's going to do that
Mhm.
with kings or aces. So I think that was a smart fold for you. I mean, again, it really depends on, I think, the dynamics here. I think your play and Helmuth's play here were both smart. It's just funny to hear all the banter. It's funny to hear Esfandiari think that he's right. And, Esfandiari talks a big game with Helmuth, right? But Helmuth beat him heads up in high stakes duels. So, just saying, I mean, you got to give Helmuth some credit here.
Also, in Helmut's case, it was less than less than double his re-raise to call. It's
Mhm.
one thing if it's like you make it 2.7 thousand and then it's like 10,000 after that, but he made it 5K, so he's getting really good pot odds. So I guess technically, if your read is that strong, it's a better fold because the pot odds are so good. But at the same time, it's just funny to see the banter come after that. As far as the end result of the show, Esfandiari was the big winner of $119,000.
Mhm.
Rania was second with 110,000, so pretty much the same thing if you ask me. And then the other 5 players were all down at various amounts. I think Nick Wright really kind of was the most swingiest player, and even when he won some chips back, he never really got into profitability all that much. So I think he busted like twice with Esfandiari and doubled to him once. So ultimately, he was a net loser by quite a bit. And obviously with Luke long gone, it makes me wonder, had this been the double stakes table for Luke Wakeland, I wonder had he maybe would have played a bit more cautiously because the money was so much bigger, or would he have just been even crazier? I'm not sure. Let's see, what else here? Yeah, yeah, I mean, overall, I was very entertained by Gronk. I was worried it was going to be very cringeworthy. I loved his antics. By the end, he won me over, even though I was fairly confident I was going to enjoy his action at the table after seeing
Mhm.
how just bare bones he was just limping the shit. He probably had in his head, I'm going to have to mix things up to not be such a total dunce on TV. As far as my final thoughts of the overall table here, my little notes here, um, I thought that they had a bigger focus on these like in between session sections of the show, like in between every like 30 hands where they do interviews and they come sit back down. They showed more of them in the back room. I thought that was kind of a nice little thing. I wish they'd done that more in the past seasons.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of see them getting food at the buffet. They're in the green room kind of bantering with each other. As I mentioned, there's that shot of Gronk and Phil throwing a football, which is just funny to me. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of like that again. This is just kind of a space where everybody just seems like they're having fun. The money's not too serious. I mean, again, it's $50,000, $100,000. That's, more than I make in a year, so it would be serious for me. Everybody's just kind of having fun. Again, the loose cannon, Luke didn't exactly do a great job, kind of befitting the other loose cannons at this big game. I mean, none of them really impressed me in terms of their poker play. One of them did manage to make money for sure, but nothing that I found super. No, just one, right?
Well, for
For-
season two, yes. For season two, yes. Season one had Lily Newhouse, and then season two had the two Lukes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
L's. So the three L's didn't take an L.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wish, again, the loose cannon had a bit more and had stuck around a bit longer. But yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun to watch. As I mentioned, I think, the first episode, it took me a little bit while to get the dynamic. The real big problem I have is just, again, these 5 minute recaps, cut this down to 1 minute, or have all the hands episode, something. Just stop doing this if you're going to do season three. Just cut down on that. And I mean, the production design looks nice, the set looks nice, the cinematography and the lighting looks nice. The place where they're doing the interviews also kind of looks nice, and it's kind of like dark behind them. It's, kind of has this sort of classy Las Vegas aesthetic. If you want to have interviews, that's okay. Just have them be a bit more substantial. Have them be, oh, I'm so excited to play. Here we go. We're going to get this to happen, or a recap of a hand that we literally just saw 20 seconds ago. If you want to have interviews, do more stuff. Like you mentioned, in between these sessions of them bantering in the green room or them bantering at the buffet, or do little segments like ranking poker players like you had with Phil Hellmuth, something a bit more substantial moving forward.
And one thing they could do is, you could have a post-mortem. Let's say, I just beat salmon hand number 40. And then the interview is about, I lost to salmon hand number 10, so I did this in hand number 40. Have some more connectivity,
Mhm.
and have them discuss how their gameplay is evolving over the course of the table, not just about something we just saw. That could be a little bit more unique there. But I will say this is definitely my favorite 5 episodes of the Big Game on Tour by far. I feel like in the skeleton of what this show is, with all the interviews and recaps, this is probably as good as it's ever going to get for me because I didn't think there was one dud player at the table. I thought that either everyone played or talked entertainingly, made an impression on me as a viewer. And obviously, you can't just bottle this and reproduce it over and over again in the future. But I would be more than happy to have watched like the uncut version of this table with all every single hand shown because I'll definitely be watching Rania in years to come, see how she does, in whether it's on TV or in tournament scene, maybe in the main event. Hopefully, we never know. And Nick Wright, I'm less of a big sports fan than I was maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But I definitely will keep my eye out for him because I do think he has a great sort of TV charisma, and I can see why he's big on TV. And I guess while I don't really care about the loose cannons too much, I guess it'd be funny if one of them made a token appearance elsewhere in the main event some year. It'd be kind of fun. So I'll look out for them at least.
Yeah, again, I'll be looking out for Wright and Ronnie in the future. They both came off very well. And then obviously, if Esfandiari would like to come back and just make a deep run in the main, that would just be so cool. But he obviously, he's a dad. He's got 18 million from the big 1-for-1 drop. So I think he's all set.
Yeah, so again, while I can't say these episodes make up for the lackluster quality of the bunch of episodes before, I am glad this season existed because it gave me some Gronk and Hellmuth. And again, when I first heard that Hellmuth and Gronk were going to be playing on the BM on tour, I was excited. I'm glad that I was not let down by that pairing, and among everybody else, of course. And of course, the Phil Hellmuth was all gold too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on here in our little itinerary here. So I have just a bunch of random poker headlines, and it's kind of a joke between me and Sam that I will present topics and he'll kind of just be indifferent or not care, which is kind of funny to me because we're just very laid back when it comes to the poker world here. But a few things I wanted to discuss. A few was that a few months ago was the World Series of Poker Europe. And we managed to watch some of the coverage online, and I was actually very impressed with that. I thought it was very sleek, it was very
Mhm.
efficient. We got to see all the tables that were spotlighted very well. I was very impressed with that stuff. How about you?
Yeah, well, I started watching the main event because I saw Shina Akamoto, who's won two back-to-back ladies main events at the WSOP, was still in the hunt, dealing with like the top 50. And then also Annette Oberstad, who obviously won the WSOP main event when she was 19 years old. And it has like a makeup channel on YouTube, and I've seen a couple of videos. She's, seems nice, not really my thing. They were both still in the hunt with like 50 players or so left. So I was kind of excited seeing them. Of course, they both lost, so I stopped watching as soon as they both busted. But again, they're both very good players. I mean, Shina Akamoto has really, I think, made a name for herself. She's really like not just a great female player, like she's a great player, period. Making a deep run here in the WSOP main. It'd be sick if she made a deep run in the main event in Las Vegas. I wouldn't be surprised if she makes a deep run this year or in another year soon. She's really got a lot of skill. So it's nice to see her in the hunt. Yeah, I mean, I like the graphics. I again like the look. I think it's just very sleek. The camera resolution's nice. The lighting's nice. It's not too overlit. The sets and tables look like real tables, which is nice. It's just yeah. When I saw those two busts, I just like I'm gonna stop watching.
Yeah, I think actually Annette moved on from her makeup channel to a fashion channel.
Oh,
So that's kind of like her third venture of sorts here. I also saw a headline that the World Tour of Poker in Paradise is changing venue. So it's going to be at the Baha Mar instead of the original location here. And so again, as a minor thing, I thought it was worth mentioning.
yeah, the Baha Mar, it has three luxury oceanfront hotels, an elegant casino, and a lush 15-acre water park. Just looking at this right here, it's in a 1,000-acre resort complex. Yeah, 100,000 square foot casino. Looks pretty impressive. I don't know. I mean, I've never been to the Bahamas, so I have no clue. I'm just typing in Baha Mar Casino here. Let's just see what it looks like. Yeah, it's pretty classy. They've got crystal chandeliers and red fuzzy carpets. So, all right, sure. Good luck to them.
Another headline I saw here is that the Run Good Poker Series is actually going to be having a series in Japan, which is kind of funny. And it's weird because again, I sort of associate it within America, kind of like the WSP circuit, where different cities here. And I wonder, is that really an ideal location for that level of poker play? Like I feel like if it's the worlds of poker, the binds are bigger, you can justify, you're paying more money to enter. Does that make sense to you, Sam? It doesn't make sense to me by just the metrics of having to fly to Japan and all the logistics there.
So I'm reading the press release for it. It says that it's returning to Tokyo. So it's already been in
Oh,
Japan
okay.
past, it seems.
Fair enough.
It looks like it was for the Japan Open Poker Tour Grand Final, which has already taken place, and that there's a Colossus event that's associated, and players who advance to day two could get like Run Good Japan t-shirts and all this. So it seems like this is a partnership that was previously established.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, I mean, again, I would love to go to Japan. I'm sure a lot of people who are at the Run Good event would love to go to Japan. So, no problem if they want to do an event like that. I mean, Japan it is starting to grow as a poker place and a poker community. So, if you want to have sort of more lower buy-in tournaments, more sort of intended for grinders and experienced recreational players, I say go for it. I don't see a big problem with this.
Fair enough. I saw that Blesnik made headlines for selling a sports card for $1.5 million. And
Mhm.
so, again, I have to assume that when you get a sports card that valuable, the implication kind of being like you pulled it out of a pack or something, rather than it being like I bought it for 1.4 million, therefore I sold for 1.5, so I made money. Again, it's kind of funny how they have to kind of create value out of thin air with cards. It's not only unique to sports cards, but just in cards in general, because I mean, I guess I would have to imagine that if a card was like limited in number of how many were made, but it was like known from the start, like I know for sure only one of this card will ever exist. That'd be one thing, but I just can't imagine dropping, over 1.5 million on a single card. How about you? That's just kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I can't imagine spending $10 on a card, let alone over $1 million. Good for him that he has that card. I mean, obviously, he can do whatever he wants with it. If he wants to sell it, if he doesn't want to sell it, that's his business. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, maybe they're laundering money with this. I have no clue. Like, I mean, you hear about these paintings, right, that sell for like $200 million. An Andy Warhol painting was just bought for $200 million. And that's a painting that you can hang on your wall and you can look at every single day versus like a card, that's like this big that fits in your pocket. I mean, if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I'm going to buy a painting or a book or something that I can really experience. But whatever, it's your money. We're in a, fading capitalist society, so let's not get too political here. But recession's coming.
I suppose. So Hellmuth had posted on Twitter about he had sort of like a screenshot of a hand from the main
Mhm.
event, and I corrected what year the hand was from because he misquoted which year it was from, and he liked my post. So again, I always think that's just funny when stuff like that happens. It's not the first time I've done that on Twitter, and it's just funny how they at least respond positively to me correcting them.
As a sign of his gratitude, he should come on the show. Phil, we'll let you talk about whatever you want. You can be on here for 8 hours and talk about how great you are. I don't care. Please come on.
We did see a confirmation of the return of the Heads Up Championship for 2026 as well. I don't want to spoil myself for the lineup, but I did accidentally see some of the headlining players, and that includes some of the big names that were missing from last year. I don't know if you saw the same.
I know that it came back, but I didn't want to spoil myself for
Right, so
the.
I won't spoil you too, but you can imagine who I'm probably referring to without me saying the names probably because of what we discussed today even. And then earlier this week, I did play in another rec poker nightly tournament game, and I had a lot of fun actually. I got fifth place, made the final table.
Nice.
I thought I played honestly some of my best poker of my life. I mean, we're talking about Texas Hold'em here, and it just kind of came down to making good reads at the table and just not making a big mistake. And that was again, I feel like maybe that rec poker player is a good barometer for maybe my overall skill more than just like your average Poker Stars tournament. So I definitely feel like over the last year of my with my recent MSO success and stuff, I feel like we're definitely slowly getting better with time, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I'd play more rec poker tournaments. It's just they're at 9 o'clock, and I hate staying up late. I mean, that time that we stayed up to watch to play that event, I mean, I felt like a plant without water, and I got fourth place. But yeah, I mean, I'll try to play a couple more events. Again, the rec poker team, I played one rec poker tournament at like 3 p.m. on a Saturday like a month ago. And I think I got like ninth or something. I can't quite remember. Yeah, I mean, it seems like pretty good competition. I'd say, maybe about the same as the MSO, maybe a bit better, a bit worse, kind of depends on how the field is, but about equal, I'd
Well,
say.
I would say that they're definitely more aggressive with their
Yeah.
bets. So I would say a bit easier to trap the players if you have a big hand. So if you're willing to fold a bit longer, you'll get paid off in the end. So that's just my maybe how I think on MSO they play a bit tighter.
I think that's right. Yeah. But still good competition. And yeah, I'll
Absolutely.
play more events soon. And obviously, congrats on your final table again. That's nice to
Yeah,
hear.
I've played in three other events ever. So I got the first, the fifth, and then one time I got out early, but I had like two kings against aces pre-flop with 10 big blinds, so not
Yeah.
my fault there. And then one more thing I wanted to go over, Sam, was this week was also the latest in the crappy poker celebrity showdown thing on PokerGo with like the Celebrity Poker Tour Championship, whatever you want to call it. And
Hmm.
celebrities that I was not expecting to be in this, besides the usual run of like athletes and influencers. We had Chumley from Pawn
Oh,
Stars.
wow.
We had I call him Wimpy Kid, the actor who plays directly with Wimpy Kid, the main lead.
Uh-huh.
And then we had Ned from Ned's Declassified, Devin
Oh,
Werkheiser playing in it.
and the star of Deadly Spa.
And also I think Bad Sister,
Yeah.
Lifetime
Good,
movie.
good movies. Great lifetime movies.
And so probably for me though, even though we had some pretty awful poker play, there was a absolutely hilarious moment at the final table, and maybe I'll have you watch it later so you can see for yourself. But Kyle Juszczyk, NFL, I think fullback for the Niners for a while, he
Hmm.
was at the final table. He had two pair. He flopped two pair eights and sevens. The flop
Hmm.
board was 8-6-6. I'm sorry, 8-7-6. His opponent
Hmm.
had jacks. The board paired in the turn, a six, counterfeit in the 8-7. The whole table, including Kyle, did not know that he lost a hand. So like literally the table, the cards are on their back, the cards are being the table, the chips are being pushed to the other guy, and everyone's like, wait, what? What happened? What? And the whole table didn't understand. So Kyle had busted in sixth place from this. Someone else busted also in the same hand, and nobody knew until like literally 2 minutes later. It was the most crazy thing I've ever seen at a final table before.
That is, I'm gonna have to watch that. That is weird. That just logically you'd think, okay, jacks and sixes beat eights and sevens. That doesn't make sense.
Maybe it was Jackson Fours or something like that. But it was like
Oh
Jackson
yeah.
eights up, and it was like the most bonkers. Like, how did you get this far and you don't see this? I mean, the whole booth was like waiting for the shoe to drop, and it was just like the most craziest looming sense of like doom to come at a table I've ever seen.
Well, now he knows, so next time he'll get better.
Right. And like I said, the last thing on my to-do list here is to open my most recent MSO Medal. We have it right here. Again, slowly and surely narrowing the gap on you, Sam. It'll be, like Helmuth has the race against Ivy for the most bracelets. You and I have the race for the most MSO bracelets. Whoa, we got a lot of layers to this package here.
Ooh, what's that?
This is different than years past, I feel like.
Yeah, in years past they've
It was just
I
in
feel
like one
like I
bag.
got one like that at one point. There
There
it
we
is.
go. Oh my God, one more bag. Hang on. Where's the little tab? All
There
right,
it is.
there it is.
Pretty thing. Does it say what you meant?
2026
Yeah.
Omaha. Very cool.
Pretty thing.
So again, if we were playing thick or sink on the mole, this would be my third weight on my neck while I'm treading water. And there we go. So again, I feel like next time we're interviewed by somebody else, we got to wear all our medals at the same time during the interview to glorify our poker accomplishments here.
Hmm.
Anyway, I think that's all my topics here. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to say before we sign off.
Yeah, I'm just looking here on poker news. Nothing really. I mean, obviously the WSOP is coming up. It's around the corner, and we'll talk about that when it happens. What's going on right now? The EPT Monte Carlo. I'm not really following that,
Oh,
so
me
I don't know
neither.
what's going on. Apparently, there's like 7 players left, 6 players left. I don't know. So good luck to those folks. If there's any more books, any more movies, any more podcasts, any more anything else that you want us to review, let us know in the comments. We're also happy to look at movie clips. I mean, that's something that Ben and I have talked a little bit about is watching clips that have poker in them, not necessarily a poker movie that we could tackle. And we can also do, just casino films in general. I would like to have Void back on and give them a good film, not just some bad film. Give them at least something that's so bad it's good that they can enjoy. So if you have any recommendations for casino or gambling related films, I think there's that film Runner Runner with Justin Timberlake. I think that's a poker film. There's Casino. There's Leprechaun 3. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that could be a safe one casino point, maybe actually. We could probably do that. That'd be a good one to
Yeah.
avoid. And again, guys, if you want to be our guest on a later episode or do you want to contribute at all, let us know in the comment section. Give us a shout on any of our social media. And until next time, guys, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, enjoy your poker on TV.
May you hit that ace on the river.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.